Have you ever stopped to wonder how you actually learn things? I mean, why do some concepts stick with you literally forever while others just fade in seconds? Well, let's dive right into this explainer where we're going to uncover the invisible architecture of your own mind. We are exploring the brilliant and honestly fascinating frameworks of educational psychology to figure out exactly how humans acquire knowledge.
To reduce our cognitive load today, we're going to follow a very clear roadmap. We'll hit 1, stages of human development; 2, the mechanics of behavior; 3, processing and social learning; 4, rethinking human intelligence; and finally, 5, philosophies of education.
Okay, Section 1, Stages of Human Development. We're starting right at the beginning of the human lifespan, looking through the lens of cognitive and psychosocial growth.
According to the renowned developmental theorist Jean Piaget, kids aren't just passive sponges just waiting to absorb facts. No way. They actively seek knowledge. They build these mental structures called schemas to make sense of their environment. Think of a schema as a mental file folder or like a blueprint that a child uses to understand a specific situation and organize their reactions to the world around them.
So, how does this actually play out? We basically either fit the world into our current understanding, or we alter our understanding to fit the world. When we encounter new information, we process it through assimilation or accommodation. For example, if a child sees a new type of dog, they just assimilate it into their existing dog mental folder. But if they see a cow for the first time and call it a dog, they eventually have to accommodate this totally new experience by modifying their schema to create a brand new category. It's this constant, highly dynamic process of adjusting our thinking. Now, as we grow from childhood into adolescence, theorist Erikson notes that we hit a major roadblock, an identity crisis. Finding our specific role in society becomes the ultimate psychological hurdle. Our challenges shift from purely cognitive stuff to psychosocial issues. We start looking at the future, careers, relationships, where we fit in the big picture. And there is a real risk here of role confusion, feeling completely unsure about who you are. Crucially, if someone is pressured into an identity during this stage, it can actually lead to rebellion or deep unhappiness. But success, that leads to a reintegrated, solid sense of self.
Section 2, the mechanics of behavior. Let's step out of developmental stages and see how this all builds into the actual behavioral mechanics of how we are taught.
This brings us to a really provocative question about behaviorism. Are our actions purely the result of environmental conditioning? Early behaviorists definitely proposed that learning is strictly regulated by environmental factors that modify our behavior rather than any internal, unseen mental states.
Consider the difference here. On one hand, you have Pavlov's classical conditioning, like involuntarily fearing the dentist's drill because of a past painful experience. It's an adhesive principle where a response is glued to a stimulus. On the other hand, we have Skinner's operant conditioning, where you actively operate on your environment to earn a reward, like studying hard for a good grade. In this case, an organism actually has to do something voluntarily to get that reward or avoid a punishment.
Here's the kicker. Learning must actually be pleasing. This is exactly why a teacher using positive reinforcement is usually far more effective than one who just punishes mistakes. Edward Thorndike's connectionism theory tells us that trials leading to satisfaction literally stamp in the learning bond. A satisfying state strengthens that connection. So if you want to build an effective learning habit for yourself, tying it to a positive consequence is biologically proven to be your absolute best strategy. Moving on to Section 3, Processing and Social Learning. Because let's be real, are we just a product of rewards and punishments? Cognitive theorists didn't think so. We are active processors of the world around us. Information processing theory suggests our brains practically mimic a computer through 3 very precise steps. First up, encoding. You have to focus your attention. If you don't attend to sensory info, it's lost immediately. Second is storage. Information sits briefly in working memory, and through rehearsal, it gets packed away into the final storing house of long-term memory. Finally, retrieval. Because the true test of memory is whether you can actually find and reactivate that information when you need it for a task. Now, when kids talk out loud to themselves while playing? Lev Vygotsky argued that this is actually them developing their inner speech. He established this profound connection between speech and cognitive awareness, believing that learning involves social relationships first. We learn from adults and peers. Over time, that external social dialogue internalizes and literally becomes the voice of our own thoughts. Which brings us to metacognition, introduced by John Flavel. This is basically thinking about your own thinking. It's taking charge of your own cognitive processes, organizing, and adapting your strategies. Actually, since metacognition is the ability to reflect on how you learn, just by actively engaging with the concepts in this explainer right now, you are practically a master of it. When you realize a study method isn't working and you pivot to a new one, you are actively utilizing metacognitive skills.
Section 4. Rethinking Human Intelligence. Let's zoom out to understand how we define and measure all this incredible processing.
For a long time, the concept of intelligence was incredibly narrow. Traditional IQ tests often miss the big picture. That's exactly why Robert Sternberg proposed that successful intelligence is actually a combination of 3 distinct abilities. It's not just encoding information. It's about applying logical reasoning analytically, devising brand new solutions creatively, and utilizing practical common sense to adapt to whatever random context you find yourself in. And Howard Gardner pushed this boundary even further. He argued that the conventional concept was way too restrictive, identifying up to 8 multiple intelligences. This was a massive paradigm shift. It tells us that a student might struggle with standard math analytics, but possess profound spatial or naturalist intelligence. Human capability isn't a single score. It's a diverse spectrum. Everyone has a completely unique way of processing and mastering the world. Finally, Section 5, Philosophies of Education. We're zooming all the way out to the macro level to observe the deep philosophical roots that actually build our school systems. The theories we've discussed don't exist in a vacuum. They're applied based on overarching values, and these major camps contrast sharply. If a school believes in idealism, you're going to see lectures focused on grasping universal truths. If they lean into pragmatism, championed by John Dewey, the curriculum is all about the learner's experience. Doing and exploring are paramount. And if existentialism is guiding the classroom, the ultimate goal is helping the student forge their own unique identity and exercise true freedom of choice. So what is your philosophy of education? Now that you've seen the invisible architecture of your own mind and the theories that shape learning, how are you going to approach your own lifelong quest for knowledge? Whether you're building new schemas, consciously shaping your habits through positive reinforcement, or practicing high-level metacognition, you are the active architect of your own intellect. How will you use these tools to become an unstoppable learner,